Good afternoon. Welcome to our second panel that will talk about the impact of the pandemic on our Asian American community here in Wisconsin. We had a wonderful panel the other week about the anti-Asian violence that's taking place across the country and in our community. So today we are going to be focusing on how Hmong American businesses, entrepreneurs, how are they doing? How are they able to get through this pandemic? And we have panelists who will share their personal experiences as well as other things that they're seeing in the community. So I want to say how pleased I am that this series came together very, very fast. There's so much going on and we want to do everything all at once, but it's very difficult with the pandemic and everybody's home. It's hard to get together. So in the past, I've hosted Asian American Speaker Series, and we have all kinds of different people come to campus. But this last year, as many of you know, I've been mostly at home too. And so it's wonderful that the virtual environment has allowed us to actually do some things that we weren't able to do before. And so I'm pleased to sponsor this series with many others, but today this panel is sponsored by our Southeast Asian American Student Center. They provide service and support to our Southeast Asian American students here on the UW campus, and also really working in the community as well. So I'm pleased to share that space today. And my goal is that, I really believe as a faculty member, I really believe that, it's important for us to really empower and lift the next generation. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Chia Vang. I'm a professor of history. I am also the director of the Hmong Diaspora Studies program here at UW-M. And a third hat that I wear is I am the interim Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer for the UW campus. So it's really an honor to be in all these different spaces, the honor to be able to help work towards increasing diversity, equity, and inclusion on our campus and in our community. So thank you so much for joining us today. I thank my students, Hope Xiong and Patrick Xiong, both are undergraduate students who are the leaders helping to put this series together. And some of these ideas for these panels came from them. So I always believe that, as someone who's now turning, a certain age next year, we always think about looking to the elders for wisdom, looking to the elders to inspire us. But as somebody who works in higher education, I just want to say every day, I am inspired by young people and the ideas and motivation that they have. That's why I love working in this, area so much, because young people inspire me to think about things that I haven't thought about. So thanks again for taking time to join us. I want now to turn it over to Hope Xiong, who's our student worker in our Hmong Studies program this year, a phenomenal young woman who is going to serve as our moderator today. And she'll introduce the speakers. After they speak, we'll have a conversation with them. And then at the end, we'll be inviting Patrol Lor, who is the center lead for our Southeast Asian American Center for UWM at this time. So Hope, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Chia. All right, so good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hope Xiong. I am a sophomore student at UW-Milwaukee. I am pursuing my education for human resources management and a minor in communications. I myself am an entrepreneur. I created my small business called Ajax Cosmetics in January 2020. So throughout the whole pandemic, I have seen many friends and family creating small businesses of their own, many being from my generation or older. And I'm sure you all could relate to see all those Facebook lives of people selling things and new launches of business websites and brands. So, today we have 3 guest speakers who will be talking about their experience as a Hmong entrepreneur and also how the pandemic affected their business. Now, our first guest speaker is going to be Dr. Missy Hurd. She is an executive director of HWCC, which is the Hmong Wisconsin Chamber of Commerce. It is headquartered in Milwaukee and provides technical and financial assistance to entrepreneurs and business startups startups in economically underserved communities. This role brings Macy full circle to her roots of growing up with an entrepreneurial father who himself sought to provide financial resources to the Hmong business community in Wausau throughout the early 1900s. She serves as a board member of Wisconsin Humanities as well as for Employee Milwaukee. Prior to coming to HWCC, Macy was an associate professor of education at the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point, teaching undergraduate courses in educational psychology and diversity, along with graduate courses in social justice and multiple intellectuals for nearly 10 years. While teaching at the university, Macy was actively engaged in several community boards and often contracted as a business consultant for both nonprofit and for-profit organizations. In 2012, she co-founded Hmong Puinyu Enrichment Program in central Wisconsin, which enrolled nearly 150 to 250 or 200 K-12 students in the recent years to learn about Hmong culture and language. Macy was, Macy was recently recognized as a Bits Time Media Noble Minority Executive and one of the 48 most influential Asian Americans in Wisconsin by Madison 365. I'm going to be turning it over to Macy Her to talk about more about her business and what she does and how the pandemic affected her.
Thank you, Hope. I certainly appreciate the introduction, and I want to thank you along with the other students there at UWM, and of course Dr. Chia for just having me be a part of this panel. It's wonderful to be in the space today with the university because the higher ed is near and dear to me and always has been, education in general. And but now I'm, moved into the economic development world, but, there's always going to be a special place in my heart, most certainly for higher ed and the students. So right now I am, as Hope mentioned, the executive director over at the Hmong Wisconsin Chamber of Commerce, and we are statewide. We do have a satellite office in Wausau, but our main office is located in Milwaukee. And we do two main things. We provide technical assistance to the Hmong and other Asian American communities around the state of Wisconsin, but we don't just serve the Asian community in Wisconsin. We also generally serve the economically underserved communities. So, that, and even if you are not a person of color, you're not from an underserved background, as long as you are starting a business, for example, in one of those that in an area that might be considered economically underserved, we can work with you as well. And more specifically, we can provide lending dollars. And so let me just step back a little bit and say, so as I mentioned, we provide technical assistance, but we also provide lending opportunities or funding opportunities for business startups and entrepreneurs. And we can give anywhere between $1,000 to $75,000 at this time to someone who might qualify for lending dollars. A lot of people often say, well, do you give grants? Why don't you give grants? And we're just simply the dollars that we have what we call a revolving loan fund. And what that simply means is the dollars that we have in our possession are ones that have also been lent out to us by banks, financial institutions, other entities that have entrusted these dollars to us, knowing the work that we do, knowing the populations that we serve. And so, with those dollars they've entrusted in us, we've given these dollars out. We give these dollars out to those who qualify. And then these dollars, when they get repaid, they come back in to the loan fund. Then of course, they get lent out again. Okay. So that's how that works. I would say that we've certainly seen a lot of things happen over the course of this past year. We in the Hmong community in particular, we have those who had hoped who had been around, their businesses had been around for a while, and they had just hoped that the pandemic would pass quickly. So even when the dollars were there through the government, through private entities, or if we put information out there, that there were those who just, one, they couldn't access it. They didn't know how to access it due to language barriers. There's just a lot of information out there. They didn't know how to decipher what was most important, what was real, what wasn't, what they were eligible for or not. And so that's where we came in to try to, in those cases, we tried to bring the information to them as much as possible. Of course, and then if finally then when they realized, these individuals, when they realized that the pandemic wasn't going away anytime soon, and they were getting to the point where they're quite frankly feeling quite desperate to keep their businesses open, and understandably so, they would reach out and say, is there any help for us? Unfortunately, in those types of situations, a lot of times what would happen is the grant deadlines would pass, and then I would say to them, or uncle, the funds are depleted. There's no more funding out there. Did you get a chance to apply at all? And he said, no, I didn't know that they were there, or I didn't realize the pandemic was going to last so long. And now I'm coming to you to see if there is any funding. And I said, there's going to be more, but at this time, there's no more. There's no more funding, but I will be sure to let you know when there are. So it's heartbreaking to hear things like that. Now, if I could just take us back just really quickly too, to that moment where I remember when the mandates were put out there for businesses to shut down. I started getting panics. I'll never forget those first few calls I received from business owners who have never reached out to us before, who in their own right have been very successful throughout the state. And they're the first ones who called, and they said, well, what are you going to do for us? And I couldn't help but tell them, and I was barely a step ahead of them. They were listening very intently to the news, and they would say, well, what do you have for us? And I said, when we heard about this X, Y, or Z, and I would tell them, well, yes, I think I know what you're talking about, but we're barely a step ahead of you. Let us put some things together, and then we'll see what we can do for you. You can hear the panic in their voices. And what really struck me was one business owner in particular, when he said, he was very kind, very patient. I think this was call number 2 that I received. And he said, please, anything you can do to help, because it's not just me, it's the families of the employees that work for me. And that just broke me. And I thought, we got to do everything we can to help these families. But language, like I said, is a huge barrier. I will also say many of these businesses that we work with don't have strong relationships with financial institutions. So that was really difficult for them. Funds that were available through the Small Business Administration, SBA, a lot of those lending dollars were not available to the populations we serve because they don't make enough, to even ask for those lending dollars. And by the way, in many cases, that's why they come to people like us. That's why they come to organizations like us to begin with. So we had to figure out a way to help them. So I'll stop at that, and then I can certainly talk more about some of those situations later.
Thank you. Yeah, it's very important to see your kind of side of view as being like an advisor to all like the small businesses as well. And I do feel like it is like a language barrier that really brings an impact on a lot of small businesses for the Hmong people, because they aren't really, they don't have the knowledge that there are so much support, but at the same time, it's limited. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So our next speaker is going to be Siso Moa. As a poor kid growing up in humble beginning of California, he now resides in the Midwest, Madison to be exact. At 22 to 23 years old, he was self-employed. 15 years later, he managed to own a few businesses such as automotive shops, e-commerce Hmong fashion brands, and a weekly podcaster for the Hmong Men Talk. All right, so I'm going to be turning it over to Cecil as he talks more about his business.
Good afternoon, everyone. Humbled to be on here. Truth be told, I dropped out of college a very long time ago. But every day I'm here looking at my forest screen as a day trader and e-commerce brand, as a podcaster, always educating myself. Even if on time I'm playing video game, I'm listening to a podcast to educate myself. But I'm gonna bring you way back in humble beginnings where I did grow up picking up strawberries in the West Coast, not knowing where I was gonna be. Um, I always wanted a job. I always wanted my own things, not knowing that I will be an entrepreneur and owning multiple business one day. That was not instilled with me. Even growing up as a kid, there was no one like, hey, Hope, hey, Junior, hey, guy, hey, Patrick, you look like you're the right fit to be a business owner one day. I wouldn't say that's encouraging or discouraging. I just find myself very hardworking, and which that came from my mom and dad that instilled in with me, and I implement that hardworking. But not only that, but the relationship that my mom and dad gave me as far as form of love, compassion, and do know my mom and dad. They don't, they're not business people, but it's compassion and caring for you people, whether employee or contractors. Those simple things goes a lot more than having a very very high degree. What I mean by this is just when you have an employee, the way you treat them is the way I treat my family as well too, and then they'll love you and stay with you forever. Um, Moving on forward, at 17, I moved to the Midwest, and at 18, I was graduating without my high school classmates, and I was out here already by myself. Do note that, and I found a job instantly. My first job was, at Sam's Club, and guess what? That job right now, if I went back to that parking lot, it's not there. That job left. It left. So but do know I was gone. I only worked till I was 20, 22, 23, and I've been 1099 for about 15, 16 years now. Just self-employed, no degrees. I dropped out a long time ago, like I mentioned, here in MATC, not far from some of you guys who may live local here. Um, if you, I always keep educating myself with podcasts and following other great business leaders and such. I've yet to find a mentor, but I look to any one of you, even someone younger than me, to always educate myself. Uh, at 22, 23, I started a car shop, not knowing anything about business, zero, absolute zero. It's just really a passion that I love to do, and I enjoy doing it. To your mom must be like, of course, I'm gonna give you my mom's way, in a very high pitch. Watching on, right? It's just like, what are you using all this money for? You're not gonna gain anything out of it. But really, I just really like what I did, not knowing that other kids will want it too as well. Like, man, I really like the way that pipe came out of there, or I really like the way the style your car looks. Could you do it to mine? And I'm like, sure. Eh, why not? Yeah. By then, I didn't know what I was worth, because by the end of the day, they're like, so how much you gonna charge? I'm like, I don't know, 6 pack of beer, maybe $20. So I didn't know what I was worth, but I was growing. But as I went, I just kept getting recommendations. And at 22, 23, I worked for a very humble boss, actually, very nice guy. But do note this goes back, that when I can't remember, do math, 15 years ago. That the wage was around, I think my last paycheck was like $15 or $13 an hour. But really, what changed my mind was, before I got a shop, was I was actually working with him and had an underground shop where I was working on cars on the side. And in 1 month, I pulled in gross total of like 18 grand. I flipped 2 cars and worked on the side. I'm like, wait a minute. If I, by all means, I'm no math major, but I worked a whole year at a job and made like 20, low 20s. And in 1 month, I made 18 gross because I flipped 2 cars. It doesn't take common sense here. So I told my boss, like, hey, thank you so much for all you giving me. It's time for me to leave. Uh, and just like that, I moved into a car shop. There's an opportunity down the street. There's a nice big shop for about 2,500 square feet or so, 22. And I moved there, and that's really embarked my journey. Know nothing about accounting, know nothing about being the CEO, know nothing about um, the janitor. But I was it. I did it all, and it was a lot of grind, a lot of work. Knew nothing about employees, and it was just me most of the time, just hustling, grinding, and again, that instilled in me as growing up as a kid, hustling, grinding, and working day in and day out. At Christmas, I was there working. I was working that much, and as time went, I was pulling just cash and cash and cash. Do know to this day I'm not driven by cash. It doesn't motivate me. It doesn't push me. So, but the opportunity, the passion, and the drive, that what's really drives me to really do what I love to do. And I don't wake up in a day not never going like, I don't want to go to work type of thing, because to me it was never work. So in that 15 year span of working in my car shop, I've grown many clients and so forth. And I knew my market was, car guys. So and that part, I knew that these car guys going to car shows, going to car meets, meeting more car people. Um, and I kept making more relationship, and all of my work was done by word of mouth. There's no, there was probably MySpace if you go way back then, but I didn't have that. And even when you had social media, when I first had Facebook, I didn't even knew that that was so powerful to start your business and grow from there. But still, the word of mouth was so much stronger. And I had, by the time I had so much work, and I finally had one to two, three, one employee that worked for me. And to this day, guess what? He still wants to work for me, but I don't own the shop no more. I left, and it's a great guy that I picked up. Um, that was my 15 years. Do know I did exit the business already about 3 years ago. Prior to the pandemic, no one could predict the pandemic. However, during those time, I was always interested in three things: investing, uh, uh, something that embarked upon me that I never knew I would become. Humbled to say, first guy to ever to do it is to be a Hmong fashion men's designer. I don't call myself as a designer. I just saw a very big opportunity when, a bow tie that I made got bought off my neck, literally bought off my neck by, of course, a very funny comedian and an activist in the community, Tujer. Hillary Buff, it off my neck, and that's what's really sparked the idea. Like, is this is this an idea or is this a want? Is this little supply and demand, right? And as I look more into the research, I'm like, you know what? My goodness, the Hmong fashion women has been updated for 10 years. I've researched it. I'm like, I can't find it on eBay. I can't find my stuff on Etsy, so forth and so on. And I really thoroughly looked at it. I'm like, and when it really validated the idea of that wanting was the same idea as I started the car shop. As I say, I didn't choose the thug life. It chose me, aka I didn't choose the passion. It chose me. I remember I didn't go to school, guys, for car shop. Guess what? I hired a guy who was AC certified. He's certified. You know, I didn't go to be a fashion designer. I just know contractors and network, being a great network. And it's the same implement that I implement of my mom and dad in their relationship. Just talking to them and getting to know and networking with them. And that was the key thing here. Be a good people person. And anyhow, back to the story. When it really validated the idea is when you can sell a bow tie, what the sweat and COVID off your neck, and they would pay extra for it. And that's why I charge. That's why I charge Tutor, and he still bought it. He just loved the brand. Not only happened once, but happened twice at a bar to a Mexican guy. So that's when it really validated the idea. That's when I really started to look at the market. I didn't know it was gonna be a business. It was just an opportunity there that I saw, and when I looked through it, was there a business opportunity? There was no one there. Do note this is 7, 8 years ago, guys. 8 years, I think, that I saw this, but the business is probably 6 to 7 years going on. And this brand is called Shiso Menswear, XIXO Menswear, and is, I'm going to say, the first Hmong inspired men's brand. It is a fashion forward brand that I was built completely from nothing. It is named like myself, but spelled different from myself to make it easy, catchy, simple brand. And this e-commerce, I would say, definitely helped me um, definitely helped me through COVID as well too. I do know this is way before COVID. I was reaching on cars, guys, and at night I was shipping things out. Behind the scene, no one knew that I was just a grease monkey as a fashion designer making stuff. No one knew that. They just see a beautiful bow tie or tie such on an e-commerce brand, and they'll buy it. And on my way to work, the post office was right in the middle. I was hustling where I was ship, pack in the morning. I'll go to the post office and then go to my shop, and I repeat it day after day. And I was building that on the side, and I was just on the side. Well, moving on forward, I did leave the car shop. It gave me 3 years now to really focus on other business, such as investing, like I mentioned. And I always wanted to invest and learn as far as stocks, as far as cryptocurrency, as far as forex, and then I learned myself how to day trade in these markets, and that's something that I do now. Um, because I did leave the car shop now, but with having all these opportunity of day trading, and then now the news business is a podcast that I started a month ago. I mean, a year and a half ago, and and keep in mind that's these multiple business that build up, and prior to the pandemic, all what I do now, I could say it's pretty COVID proof. Because with day trading, I don't need to talk to you. I just need a Wi-Fi and my four screen in front of me to make money off the market. As far as podcasting, heck, this could be a podcast. I just need to talk to you and have my Wi-Fi, get my mic. Get with get with e-commerce. I sold online, and back to Hope, what she mentioned, I became one of those crazy Hmong ladies that sells online now, because I was getting to get to the point. I was changing my tactic. I have to go Facebook Live. It was working. If you look at some of these ladies, it was working, and I'm like, you know what? I need to change one thing in my strategy is become, one of those sellers Facebook Live. So that's one thing I did change on my strategy. The e-commerce for sure, and my website did get updated. But I'm gonna give myself 2 more minutes here, and then I'm gonna, go on. But lastly, the podcast, something I was itching to start, and I wasn't itching to start. It was someone that has embarked in me again. Again, one of those, I didn't choose it; it chose me again, and I just became it, being a podcaster. Again, another industry. I have no clue what I'm doing, and I'm still learning as I go, ladies and gentlemen. And I've learned a lot through the journeys, becoming from an automotive shop, working day in and day out, very backbreaking, hard labor work, into a men's fashion designer. It's fully e-commerce, um, and then a day trader. Where I sit here with four screens, looking at the screen and investing money, and lastly, a podcast. My future of where I'm heading, I do plan to become a business coaching consultant. Uh, that is one thing I knew for sure that I'm doing. The other four, not a clue that I'll become it. It just shows me. But as I get older and wiser and where are my directions, I do see where more. And I just wanted to think how my journey embarked. And the more I think about it, like, you know what I do now is I'm really setting up for my future and where the opportunity is. On top of that, I wanted to be at home with my future kids and wife one day. I can still make money for what I do, having my little one running around, and I'm still here just working. But I don't need to talk to him if I need to talk to him. I don't need to go anywhere if I don't need to go anywhere. So it just happened in this way where, like, for some reason, this opportunity I picked has given me the opportunity to really somewhat consciously pivot into where, like, I don't need to be secluded. I could be working at the beach if I wanted to and just work. So I hope that inspires you guys and girls. My journey as just your fly on the wall and just do my thing and hustle every day-to-day base. But I'm just going to talk about this 15 minutes, and you guys always summon me back on. Who's next, Hope?
All right, thank you. That was a lot, and I'm glad that you actually elaborated on your journey too, because it really does show like how how it's going to be like as a small business owner. Like you're gonna have to put so much risk into it, and you're gonna have many mistakes and regrets. But in the end, it's all about the experience and what that has taught you. And you really do show that that you could have success without education if you have a creative mind, and if you have that independence and the like strength to do something and build something of your own. So you're doing really well. And you do inspire me to continue with my business.
Tamada.
Okay, so our next speaker is Junior Vu. He was born and raised in Milwaukee. He graduated at UW-Milwaukee and currently works there as an advisor. Outside of work, he enjoys camping, working on cars too, and fishing. He owns Vu Enterprise and manages his family's real estate properties. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Junior now.
Hi, Hope, and everyone. Thanks for having me here. So always glad to be back with UWM related stuff, even though I'm technically still working there. But glad to see everyone here. So yeah, I'm not sure if we're going through like each question at a time and then we're gonna cycle through, or if you wanted me to just go through the whole thing. Just trying to think of time wise here. But I guess I can kind of go through like the intro of how it started and then see if there's anything to circle back around. So like legally, I incorporated myself as a sole proprietorship in 2019. Basically with Vu Enterprise, this business is focused on, it's an e-commerce business where I basically sell like collectible trading cards, things that are cool, but it's also thrifting as well. So also just, buy low, sell high, right? That's the whole entire point of business. And then I also on the side, I help manage my parents' property because I noticed that they weren't really good at managing it. So I said, hey, like let me help you guys out. Maybe you can make some profit off of this. So then I'm helping them manage that as well, phasing into more active role into that. Right now, I wouldn't say it's a good time to buy because it's so competitive. If you're buying houses, my sister, they're looking for houses, man, they are like getting outbid left and right. So yeah, good time to sell though. If you're thinking about selling property, I think it'd be a really good time just because loans are so easy to get right now for the moment. But I guess I could talk more about my e-commerce business. So how and why I started it. That was one of the questions. Basically, there was like 4 main reasons of why I wanted to start my business, Vu Enterprise. The first one was basically because, I went to college, lots of debt that I have to pay back. So student loans, also, credit cards, car loans, notes that you have to pay. Also had a baby coming on the way. So I was like, okay, I need some money for that. And then it was also this one incident too, where my friends and I, we got like into the situation and this guy like was threatening to like sue us, and we were like talking to each other. We were like so scared just because we didn't have money. So then I was like, okay, well, I need to do something, right? I'm a logical guy, so if my income every month from my job here at UW isn't going to be enough to cover all of my life expenses, or at least getting me to the lifestyle that I want, how can I logically fix that problem, right? So I looked back at things that I've done in the past, because my personal recommendation, if you start any business, make sure you're doing something that you know something about, right? Don't go into like a baking business if you don't know anything at all about baking. You want to know at least a little bit. So I looked back at what am I good at, right? So of course, me being a nerd and everything, I played Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, and all of that stuff. So I looked back into my past and seeing, did I do anything that could possibly make money? I see a lot of people doing YouTube and talking about that stuff. They can make money that way. In 2013, I was selling Yu-Gi-Oh cards and Pokemon stuff and Magic the Gathering cards online on eBay mostly with my brother and I. That was enough, kind of like what Shisa was talking about earlier, like enough to pay for beer and stuff and like that when we were in like college. But I decided like let's take it up a notch. So in my role right now, UWM, I was like, I'm a recruiter, so I would travel and drive for hours. So I would listen to podcasts and watch YouTube videos. And I came across some interesting YouTube videos about people selling online, and they're like making hundreds and thousands of dollars like a day. I'm like, what if I go all in too, on this that I used to do? So I already know the business, how to do it. And I've been tracking these cards and stuff since I was like, over a decade or 2 decades ago now. I'm old now. So I know the value of these cards. I've been doing this for a long time. So I just thought, let's start looking into this business and getting into it. So I got into it that way. Then I also saw videos of people like just straight up thrifting. They would go to like Goodwill, buy cheap, and then resell. So I also started thinking about doing stuff like that too. So then I was like, okay, I opened up my business. I started up the branding because I knew that was going to be e-commerce, because I know that e-commerce is going to definitely be the future. There's still a lot of open opportunity for that. I didn't want to do brick and mortar shop because I already knew that they're all closing. Malls are closing all the time. It would be a totally bad idea. Plus, I wanted to do something easy. Higher education is still my passion. I don't see myself leaving this position anytime soon, because my business that I'm running right now with Enterprise, it's convenient enough where I can operate it from home, because all I have to do is like lick some stamps and put the cards in the mail and walk to the mailbox, right? Easy way to make money. So I started my business in 2019, and around November was when I was like, okay, let's seriously do this, because, you know, I needed to pay all these bills. And then also at that time, you know, I was also the chairman of like the Milwaukee Hmong New Year. I was just phasing out. That was my last year. And then there was like one incident where like some sponsors didn't like some of our ideas that we had. And just because they were a sponsor, we couldn't do it. So I was like, man, I worked myself for free for the community, and I have these cool ideas and I can't do them because of a sponsor. So I'm like, I'm going to become a sponsor then, right? So I'm going to have my business so that I can become the sponsor, and then I can just tell people what to do. And plus, you know, it's time for me to phase out my leadership so that new leaders can take over, and then I can sponsor new ideas as well. So that was one other reason. And then the third, like, sentimental reason would be I came across like my laptop with my brother when we started our business back in 2013, when we did it for fun. So then I came across some of that material on our laptop. My brother passed away like 2 years ago. So I was like, okay, you know, maybe this was like that sign, right? That this is what I should do. So then I opened up the laptop, and sure enough, like I found his old laptop, and on the screen, it shows the last stuff that you worked on. And, you know, he was still selling stuff and planning to work on the business that we used to have. So I was like, okay, maybe this is that sign, that push that I needed for me to go. So yeah, so that was the main reason why I started. But I started off not a lot of money. $100 was what I started, because I'm scared to invest. Like, I didn't know if it was gonna go good or not. So I think I bought some stickers, and then I reflipped them, and then I got like $200. You know, I started off making like $20 a week, and then by the end of like the first month in like November and December, then I made like maybe a couple hundred, and then by that time, it just kept growing, because I took all that money, just reinvested it straight up. And then I did the math, like, you know, my dad's really big on education, but I think I think what parents should have said is like, don't go for a certain degree. They should have just said make 100,000 or more a year, as I think what they really mean when they say become an engineer, a doctor, or a lawyer, right? They really want you to make that money, because I'm pretty sure if you were a lawyer, you didn't make any money, they wouldn't tell you to do that. So then I just did the math. I broke it down. Okay, so to make 100K a year, I have to make $270 a day, essentially. So when I first started, I think I was making like 2,000 a month, but it wasn't that bad. Because then I was just like licking stamps and walking to the to the mailbox, and then I started pushing myself more, just reinvest and reinvest. And then COVID hit right around like February, March. Then things like just tanked for that month or two. But then the stimulus came in, and that was like that scene from Avengers Endgame where all the heroes come back. And then stimulus checks came, and then it just skyrocketed from there. I just got lucky because Pokemon cards just grew exponentially. Like right now, if you go to Target, Walmart, the whole entire sections are all cleared. People are like buying that and reselling them on live like crazy. I don't do that live stuff just because I don't have time to do that. But yeah, people are making bank on that. So I just got lucky that I started my business and it went into that, and that just grew like exponentially over the whole entire pandemic. My theory is a lot of young single guys, like, you know, my friends, they have a lot of money now. They're not going to the bars. So what do? They are buying these cards and opening them at home, living out their like nostalgia days, which is really awesome for my business that I went into that field. So I thankfully I did apply for one of the grants too, the like We're All In grant. I think that was like $5,000. So that really helps me pay for like upkeep costs and things like that, and also buy inventory. So I was able to reinvest that, and then by around like the middle of the year, like 6 months into starting my business, I was already on track to hit my goal of making like 270 a day. So then I was already making the six figures that, you know, your typical Hmong parents tell you to go and get $100,000 a year. So I was like, I already did that in 6 months. Man, I should have just done this from the beginning, right? So then I was like pretty glad. So that was just how it started. But I didn't start like, oh, right off the bat, started off with $20 a day. Like literally, I did the math. I was like, at first, that's $600 a month. That could pay for my car bills and all of my other things that I need. I thought that was pretty great. So then I just double it. I set realistic goals. So then I told myself, theoretically, if I keep growing at this rate, by August, I should hit that 270 a day. So then I just planned myself. I think a lot of people get scared just because they set the goal way too high at the beginning. I was just happy that I could pay my car note now in the beginning to pay for all that stuff, making $10 a day the first month or so. So that was good. Just looking at things logically. So yeah, I think e-commerce is definitely great. It's unfortunate that a lot of like Hmong businesses I see, they don't have like Facebook pages or websites or anything like that, or if they do, they're not like that great. First thing I did was get a professional to help me build my brand, build my website and things like that, and do marketing, build social media, do a lot of free giveaways during last year. I was giving away like stuff on my Facebook page like every single week, booster packs, cards, and things like that, just to attract followers, and also just part of my idea of giving back. I think over Christmas, I gave away like over 2,000 Pokemon cards to people that could sign up. It was for free. Just, you know, a way to give back. And plus I accumulate a lot of like common cards that nobody really wants to buy. So I might as well give them back to kids, because I think when I was a kid, that would have meant a lot to me if I just got some free Pokemon cards or something like that as well. So I think that's a good intro.
Thank you, Junior. You gave us so much information. I was talking to your sister Wendy like the other day, and she's like, yeah, Junior is profiting so well because, you know, trading cards for mailing, usually mailing for like small businesses, you know, take a lot of toll on, you know, their profit. But you probably just like mail with an envelope, and that really does like that doesn't even make any expense cost to you at all that much. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I mean, I work at Target, and I can't tell you how many times there's people coming to me asking for Pokemon cards or any cards, and I'm like, you'll just have to see over there. Like it's very crazy. So it's nice that you picked a very like high-ended you know, demanded product to sell. So thank you so much for sharing that. Now we will be moving on to questions. So if anybody in the audience have any questions that you would like to ask for the guest speakers, you can ask away. You can ask either through typing in the chat or unmuting yourself at this time.
Okay, this is Pachua. I have a serious question because I've seen those live videos, you know, I've been added to groups. What are the expectations or requirements for like small, like tax wise? Because it isn't, I don't know, like it seems kind of sketchy that people are just selling stuff out of their basement, right? So I don't know if other people are curious about this, but if I were to start that, what would I be expected to tax wise? I don't know which of you three would be able to answer that, but I feel like I don't know how much is going to, I don't know. Go ahead, answer it.
Well, if y'all don't mind, I'll go ahead and give that a stab. Let me just say, I don't know if you saw the attorney who was on our one of our webinars. Was it about 2 weeks ago? She's actually a business attorney, and her name is Mai Vu Zhang. If we actually recorded the session, it was very popular. We have 8.5 viewers, people who have viewed, or I should say, that has reached. More specifically, that it has reached. If you go to our website, or if you go to our Facebook page, the Hmong Wisconsin Chamber of Commerce, HWCC, you'll find that that link. It was It was a very popular webinar because she goes through all of the tax information, because there's so many Facebook sellers. So of course she's an attorney, so she's going to be very technical. You know, so I would certainly advise that you go to that and watch that video.
Thanks. I'm not trying to start a small business or anything. I'm just like, I know a lot of aunties who do that stuff. So it's just like, I wonder what that means, because obviously you're going to the USPS and you're constantly having stuff shipped to your house, you know, like just with like insurance or just protection that way too. I really loved all the speakers. And I think a big part of small businesses is having like consistency and like the personality and like the branding and all that stuff. So like I said in the chat, I've been loving like interacting with the sellers on social media. Like when they, especially when they do giveaways or when they're really like interactive with us, like in the comments or like in the live videos, like it's like a psychological thing where it feels really good to be like shouted out like in a video or like to like you feel special, right? So yeah, with podcasts too, like I think it's really great to have that space to just have a voice and just like talk about things too. So you don't have to be selling a product, but just giving something so other people can benefit like is awesome. So great work and keep it up.
Oh, Macy, can you put the link to the on the chat for people? If would that be convenient for you or?
I was thinking that very same thing. And in
Yep.
fact, I probably won't be pulling it up, but I see that my
Sure.
one of my staff members, Meng Zhang's on here. So Meng, if you hear me, if you wouldn't mind pulling that up and putting it in the chat box, that would be great.
Oh, I just want to say how inspired I am. I love what I'm doing, but I also, have all these ideas about things I could also be doing. And, I've been wanting to do a podcast for a long time, right? But so I might be consulting with Shisho sometime about my podcast, but my podcast is not going to focus on, gender equity or whatever. It's going to be I want it to be more it's gonna talk about social issues too, but I want about healthy well-being and kind of these mental toughness that we all need right now. So maybe I need to just have a session with Sisho and then you can help me motivate me because I'm already motivated to I'm working 12 hours a day already. So why not? Can I take 2 hours a day not doing work for my work and do something else too? So it's really good. Thank you guys for sharing. It's inspiring to me. So Hmong people work hard. That's what they always say. So you guys are just a demonstration of the fact that we really do work really hard for the things that we have. So thank you for sharing.
I'm gonna ask a question. So, for you three, anyone, how did you advertise your business during the pandemic? Like, how did you, reach out for networks to, help build up your business during the pandemic?
So right now there's like a huge community of Pokemon card collectors. It's so big that even people went opposite of going e-commerce. They're actually opening up physical stores because the demand has grown, and they're like two home business owners too. Wish we could have had them so they could be in contrast to me going more online. But yeah, there's lots of Facebook groups. That's where I go. I'll just make a post like over a weekend, and I'll probably make like $1,000, like just from one Facebook post. Like, hi guys, hit me up if you want to buy some of these cards. Take some pictures. There you go. Leave that. Then look at all my messages, answer them all at night, take care of orders, and then it'll be done. I don't want to do live just because my time, I have a kid, so I can't just be there like, hi guys, like sister, brother, look at this. Like I can't do that. But if I could, I guess I could. Those people are probably making bank too. Like if they're selling a dress for like 300, you sell like 10 dresses. What's that? Like $3,000 that they just brought in right there. See, that's a lot of money too. So yeah, going on Facebook Live, I see a lot of people doing that, but I just don't have the time. But I do Facebook posts. That's one big way. And again, with promotion, advertisement, yeah, so I think that's mostly what I got. I'm thinking about getting like brand ambassadors up next once I save up enough money in order for me to go that way, or do more research to see if it's worth that investment. So I think that's the direction I'm thinking about going, or trying to grow my social media so that I can also just post on there so that I can get more people to draw. But word of mouth is definitely a big way, because then people are like, oh yeah, because I also make like custom cards and collectibles that people can get, so then they'll come to me for requests as well.
I'll go. Yeah, with the recent pandemic, tons and tons of social media that is out there for free. There's tons of that, and I utilize all of it. Although I'm not an expert at all of it. One of my biggest growth hack was actually through LinkedIn, networking with a lot of business. Somewhat Facebook too, but LinkedIn is definitely more of a networking than there. It's but when I'm on LinkedIn, do note that I'm not there to ever sell a product ever. I've talked to many on there, and the subliminal message under LinkedIn is you're selling yourself. Remember that. That's the key point. I don't ever come off trying to sell my tie or anything at all. Really selling yourself and networking and getting to know on these Zoom calls, just like this, and networking. So that's one of my biggest growth hack that I've grown during this time because everybody's just sitting at home, literally, and their PJs, and we just get on and have a live chat. So that's one of the biggest growth hack that I've done. So there, Pinterest, since I am a you know, not a digital product, an actual product is one of the key thing too. I've been slacking on my Instagram, and I heard TikTok is a really big thing, but I don't know how to grow Instagram. I mean, my bad, TikTok. And so I'm by all means, I hear that it's a very big thing. So if you're good at it, go all for it. But I'm trying to figure that out as well too. Facebook's always been there for me. But to be told, I've not used any advertisement at all within this whole year last year. Prior to that, for sure, yes, I've done advertisement. Do note that last year the price of advertisement dropped huge. It was a huge discount. My bias on that is I'm not essential. I'm not a hot Pokemon card that I'm trying to sell. My stuff are not essential at all. So by all means, I'm not even wearing a suit and tie. So I'm not essential, to be selling suit and tie. But that's just my bias. So I did not do any sort of advertisement at all because I was just like, you know what, I'm not a suit and tie. No one's gonna buy a suit and tie. There's nowhere to go right now. Granted, if you are even on the Zoom call, you're who knows, Junior could be wearing no pants on now. And it's just a suit up there and that's it. But who knows? We don't want to know. But what I'm trying to say is my stuff was and my bias was just like, you know what, it's not really the right time right now. This coming year to next year, I'll probably do actual advertising. And again, I've done from Google AdWords to Pinterest to Facebook to Instagram as advertising as well too. It's really just trying. I've got some success and no success all at the same time, but it's just a matter of trying for advertisement. And then for sure, podcasting is one of my key subliminal messages, how I was able to get my brand out there as well too. Sponsoring your own podcast. That's the one thing that I did work out there. So hope that answers your question, Hope.
I don't see other people's hands, so I have a question for my C. Um, but I want to make a point that Cecil, you said this very early in your presentation. As somebody who works in higher education, I am completely supportive of people going to college and getting degrees and doing things that they want to do. But I'm also very pleased to hear your story about it's not about education. It's learning that you're talking about. Learning never ends, right? Even if you have your degree, my C and I have PhDs, but we probably learn every single day too. So it doesn't stop. So the fact that you don't have a formal degree doesn't stop you from doing the things that you want to do. So I think that was a really important point you made that I appreciate a lot. But Maisie, can you talk a little bit more for me? You mentioned some of the elders who have small businesses who are struggling, and I can't even begin to imagine how hard it is for families like the mom and pop stores, right? How are as the chamber with all of the Hmong businesses across the state, how are people doing? I know it's a struggle, but what are you hearing from these families? Help me understand a little bit about that, because I'm sitting in my house, I'm sitting in Milwaukee. I don't really know what people are doing around the state.
It's there's a huge range. You get those, as I started mentioning earlier on, who are just doing their normal. They're veteran shop owners, right? The Asian store shop owners, for example. There are some many around the state who have been there a long time. The parents are there. They continue to be there. Granted, this is not the story for every one of them, but there's certainly some who, they've just been doing what they've been doing, selling things, and that's just what they've known. Now, do they have formal financials? Not all. I can tell you right now, many of them don't. So that was really tough when the pandemic hit, and they thought, I remember going to someone and said, you need this document to be able to apply. And even if I said, and that's it, Just, hand it over, scan it in, and that's it. That was the hardest part, you know. And two, so we have to remember, even though they're business owners, they don't make enough to hire an accountant. They've never had that sort of relationship. And then of course you get the other end. Well, let me just finish that story. Then there are those who said, I just opened up a business because I like clothes. I was told I like to sell things, and why don't I open up a shop? So I did. I never thought to prepare, for something like a pandemic. I never thought I needed to, keep, that strong or that formal of financials. I just never did. So now we're in this situation. Now I don't know what to do. We actually helped one business, and through some, through some of our being able to talk with the folks who who distribute the funds, and say, hey, this person just doesn't have any formal financials. They provided us some written notes, some written financials, and guess what? We were able to help them make it happen. That's all they had. Granted, that wasn't always the case. There were a few exceptions. And then you had the other end, who were very innovative. They did what, some other businesses did, where they, they pivoted from, in-person eat-in, for example, to carry out, to online selling. There are those businesses who did that very, this is much easier said than the situation, but that's what they did, and they pivoted in no time. They had to, that fear of failure got them going, and they made that pivot, and they did that the best that they could. They encountered other challenges, for example, having to pay for delivery and things that they had never done before, but they did it in order to keep their businesses alive. There are others who completely moved from in-person, selling to online completely. And they saw that actually helped that actually was a really good thing for them. And then there are others who have expanded their offerings as a way to, make money, and that has helped them. And then, you'd be surprised, not that many businesses that we have worked with have actually shut down. Yeah, not every week. Once in a while, I get that question about, how many of your businesses have shut down? Not many. Some of them might have shut down. I mean, permanently, that is. Some of them have shut down temporarily. When the pandemic first hit last year, but just temporarily, and then they reopened. And then, we hustled in our own ways, trying to get these funds out to them the best that we could around the state. Just the best that we could. We made some very, some personal phone calls at times, visits, especially to those businesses where there was limited English. They didn't know what we had to offer. We made special trips to these locations around the state to help them fill out applications, so that they can get these funds. So those are some of the things we did. So getting back to your original question, wide range. I would also say there were some very new businesses, and this is not only in the Hmong community, but there are many new businesses that started right before the pandemic hit. All of their savings, everything they've got went into this business. It was taking off, just a few months before the pandemic, and then the pandemic hit. Their business was just getting started. All of their monies are in there. And then guess what? A lot of these funding sources, grants and so forth, even lending dollars, aren't available to them because they're so new. They don't have the tax documents that are required. I mean, you can see it from the other end, right? The other side, where they need this proof that this is a legit business, right? And that it's been around. But on the other end, for these new businesses, again, I've mentioned this a few times, it's heartbreaking, to hear that there are no really resources for these individuals. So, we've been dealing with that, and I'm not sure that there's a good answer. There still isn't a good answer as far as how to help these newer businesses. But somehow some of them are still making it. I think the good news is that many of them they didn't give up their day jobs, while they were trying to make this new hustle. So These are, like I said, there's a range of experiences. So yeah, if there are any questions related to that, I hope that answers your question.
I wanted to add on to Macy and what Mechi mentioned on that too. You had to pivot. There's no choice. Like again, my business, my e-commerce, the only that I did pivot was a lot more live Facebook sell, and they're a lot more technical with better mics and etc. But that's just technical things. One thing I was gonna say is I'm somewhat biased on one thing too, is taking loans and taking that money. Here's where, listen me out though. Why? Remember, the loan, the VC, aka venture capitalist, AI angel investor, look, they're there for money. They may or may not care about your idea. They may just, they're there for business, period. What I'm trying to get to is, it's the customer that's buying your brand. They're the one paying you. If you can sell your product, physical product, whatever it be, to the customer, you got the idea. Remember that. Loans are great, VCs are great, AAs are great. I have nothing against that, remember, but my saying is, if you have an idea and it's validated, those are the people who is paying you. Okay? Those are the people. What I'm trying to say, if I could get a loan for 10,000, whatever, right now to Macy, and my idea doesn't work, I got $10,000, but remember, the customer is paying me the money, not Macy. Macy's not here to buy my business or pay rent. It's just I'm in a loan. I would go in a loan one day when I go VC, AI, or IPO to ever do it. Will I do it? Yeah, absolutely. I'm not to that point of going to IPO yet. That's when the day I'll do it. So all of I've done, I've never honestly took a loan. I've never taken any VC, AI, or mommy daddy's money. It was all hard work, and that's it. And that validated all the business. Like, you know what? This does work. Because what I'm saying is, if you don't, I have the sweat equity. That's what I'm saying. I have the sweat equity that the business will work. If money just keep handing to you VC, money just keep handing to you loan, you're not going to work that hard. Nothing gets loan. Nothing gets VC and AI.
Yeah, I mean, most certainly. Let me just make clear, right? Lending dollars are not they're to help with capital, right? If you need those dollars, depending on the business, the type of business you have, right, and how big your business is, whatever the situation might be. But those dollars have to be paid back, right? And a part of what we do here at the Chamber is really to teach people how to be responsible for lending dollars, right? So it's not just about giving money to folks who need it, but also helping them to understand and walking them through that, to be responsible for those dollars and how to, and then not only that, folks who typically come to a place like ours, we're mission driven. We're a CDFI, or CDFI, Community Development Financial Institution. We're mission driven. We're trying to teach people through technical assistance how to manage these dollars, right? And how to help their businesses grow, for example. And ultimately, if they choose to work with a bank, because we know that the relationships with banks a lot of times, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. We just live in that sort of world, where that relationship with a financial institution, a traditional financial institution, a lot of times is very important, whatever that relationship might be, right? We know that through this past year, for many businesses, that was what they didn't have. And that hurt them in many ways. And again, there are many paths, right? Not everyone needs a bank, but I can tell you that we still very much live in a world where that relationship is important. So our hope always is that we can help them understand money, how they can understand, how to grow their businesses, for example, how to be responsible in that way with those funds, and then that they can, for lack of a better word, graduate to build a stronger relationship with traditional banks.
There's a question in the chat, so maybe you can all address that too.
So what are common misconceptions about starting a small business in the Southeast Asian community? You know, I think, in fact, one of the things that we just talked about here, I think is one of them, and I don't think this is unique to the Southeast Asian community. I would say it's a situation of many traditionally, and I want to be careful not to stereotype, you know, many economically underserved communities, right? Where for the most part, they're generations upon generations of not having money, you know, and so as a result, they're very afraid to lend, you know, to borrow money, because quite truthfully, because many of us, you know, I'll just speak from my own experience. My own parents had, you know, trouble trying to manage, you know, funds growing up for a while, and my dad was an entrepreneur, you know, and then it wasn't, I remember very well in my head, the credit cards that would come in. And then I remember one day my parents just had enough and they said, we're not going to get any more credit cards, no more. You know, we're going to pay these debts off and we're not going to manage till this, you know, any more credit. Until this day, they don't. I remember that at a young age, they saw the trouble that brought in their lives, and with six kids, how difficult that was. So, you know, my job now, of course, is to, again, as I mentioned earlier, is to really help the Southeast Asian community better understand how to manage, you know, those lending dollars if they need to borrow them. You know, there's so much to say about that, but yeah, please look out for our, I'm just going to take this opportunity to just quickly say too, you know, we have upcoming webinars that will address some of these very things we're talking about here. So I think that's one of the common misconceptions, I think, from small businesses in the Southeast Asian community. But again, it's not unique to the Southeast Asian community about what lending dollars are for. They're not all evil, but it's about how we use them.
Yeah, I would say it's very similar like that too, especially like working with my parents, for example, too, since they also used to like run the real estate, the properties that we had. So I was like, okay, you have to like financial literacy essentially is what it's lacking in the Southeast Asian community, and I think in general, across all of Americans. But so like just looking at things like logically, looking at it as math, and the whole like how the equations, like just budgeting, even like straight up like, okay, or take like this is how much I'm going to spend, this is how much I'm going to get a return out of that. I guess it's hard for a lot of people that I work with too, especially elders, when I'm trying to talk to them or give them like my advice, is like sometimes you have to invest. Like I'm trying to explain like, why would you pay somebody to build a logo for you, right? I'm like, why not? Yeah, so I actually paid like one of our former alums here, Majori, hit her up, Majori Designs, if you know, looking for a logo. So like just because of that, because if I spend like a month designing a logo, I already wasted a month that I could have been making money. Why don't I just pay somebody to do that, and I already know I'm going to make that money later? Like, you know, like think of things like that. Like it's totally worth spending your time as long as you know that's going to generate back more income, instead of like, oh, you know, we don't want to hire another person. I rather just, I don't know if they own a restaurant, for example, like one of my cousins, they rather just be their own cook. But why don't you hire somebody else? Then you could like start your next business and your next one, or things like that. That would save you time, because time equals money, pretty much kind of scenario. I think like financial literacy and looking at like budgeting and looking at the math of how things and expanding is a lot of things that, and taking the risk and investing in their own business is like some things that doesn't really click in a lot of individuals yet.
And if I could just add one more thing, and again, we actually had a webinar on this as well, where Yili Vu, the owner of Hot Pot in Appleton, she did a webinar with us a few months ago, and she is a very giving person. You know, she's an entrepreneur in her own right, ran 3 businesses, her and her husband, and but they're very giving. In fact, they're one of our legacy donors. They have committed to giving to our chamber for the next 10 years at very least, per year. And they, you know, they just give, and they give of themselves. They They are very generous to the community, which we don't always see in some of the Southeast Asian businesses, because I think there's a misconception that you keep giving and then you won't ever see anything come back. Perhaps it's a product of the times right now too, that what I see happening for them, and she would say as well, that things come back tenfold, if not more, as they give. As business owners, that all of that comes back to them even more so.
Misconceptions, I think being, I would say, naive in my younger days helped me improve or to be where I'm at as starting a business. And negativity, back to my mom again, although I loved her and she does help me with the business as well, but it's just that negativity, never something positive from her at all. But she's very what's the word here? I can't think of the proper word. She's helping you, but she's lecturing you all at the same time. I can't think of the word, but it I would say, it definitely was negativity as far as misconceptions, but as long as you really know what you want, there's nothing out there that could stop you. Like I said, all of what I've done, by all means, I don't know everything, but I do learn what I want to do as long as I put my heart into it, from becoming a car shop owner and wrenching on cars to uh, uh, me being an investor in day trading, Big Bone being a podcaster again. Like I don't know nothing about being a podcaster, equipment, etc. To owning an e-commerce fashion brand. And definitely another misconception is definitely, if you can't do it, like Junior said, just hire out, and I've done that. Find people who are smarter than you, which I've done. I never say I'm the smartest dude. I just find people who are smarter than me. A car shop, for example, the guy was AC certified. I'm not AC certified. Fashion design, yeah, people who are graphic designers. There's 3 of them. They're all women, and 2 of them are local here, but actually one of them doesn't live in the same country as we do. She's, and she lives in the third world, and hiring out other work out to do. But that's all I'm not gonna say about that question.
I think we all know people who have started on a negative note with business. And I'm thinking of like pyramid schemes or like selling knives and coffee and vacuums, So sometimes I think a lot, they associate business with that kind of thing where it's like, yeah, right? So I think you guys are right. There's a lot of like, you need the financial literacy, and sometimes there are words that are not easily translated. So how do you explain that and teach people who are trying to grow their business or have started at a certain time and things have changed? So how can we help them adjust? So go ahead, Shisho.
I could definitely add on to that. I didn't have any formal education or MBA. My MBA, to be honest, was I got into multi-level marketing, aka pyramid scheme. But you gotta hear me out though. I'm not there for the product or the brand. Any multi-level marketing, network marketing, it depends on which one. It's really just a self-development business. That's really what it was. And I started with traditional business, and in my early 30s, my dad actually said that don't join that kind of stuff. But I was always curious about it. I came in looking at how the business worked. I mean, look at my mindset. I have a corporate mindset. I don't have an employee mindset. It's kind of like, how can I get 30,000 people into Vegas? How can I be that guy? How can I be that CEO? So that's how I go into the business of multi-level marketing. And I learned like from these business owners, like, how did I learn this? How to talk to people again? How to be a salesperson? I actually learned that through network marketing. So that was, to me, was my MBA. It was worth every penny because it was a self-development. So I have nothing against network marketing. Do know I come from a mindset of learning the business and how to grow my business to be that. By all means, I left network marketing years back, and I was in it for 3 years. But those 3 years of learning the business and learning how to talk to people and how to sell to people, I learned all that through network marketing. I didn't learn that through school. I didn't learn that through my car shop. It was just through network marketing. that taught me a lot to begin. I say MBA to me was my network marketing. It taught me all of that. So I can't thank network marketing for that.
You know, the wonderful thing these days is, like you said, Pachua, that, back then they wanted to start, many folks wanted to start businesses, even now, right? And then they heard about the pyramid schemes or whatever it might be. And then unfortunately they had a negative experience. Many of them have, not, I mean, perhaps not all of them, but I know many of them have, right? And then that news spreads like wildfire, right? And then it has a negative, reputation as a result. And but the wonderful thing, especially nowadays, is there's so many resources. And I see my team member Mang writing in the chat box, there's so many resources. We're just all here, not that we're just sitting around, that's for sure, but there's so many economic development offices, business development offices that are here to help, not just and we are here as the Hmong Chamber, to help, especially many of us are bilingual here, right? So, and we are here to help for those who don't have that, and that may have that language barrier. And it makes me feel a great sense of pride to be able, and gratitude, or I should say, just I'm grateful that we can help them. But then those who don't necessarily have that language barrier, there's so many resources out there. SBDCs, I know UWM has an SBDC office, right? Small Business Development Center. Most of the, I think UWs around the state of Wisconsin have SBDC offices that can help you develop, for example, financials, help you better understand your type of business, how much you should sell your products for, and at least give you an average, right? And then you can go from there about what people typically sell something for, what kinds of documents you need, what's the legal, who they might not be able to give you all of that information, but they can at least provide you some recommendations and referrals and best practices. There's, like I said, a lot of our communities have economic development offices, right? You can go to them, and I can tell you, not everyone knows this, but we love partnering. We love working with our economic development partners because at the end of the day, it's about the businesses. It's not about us. We have healthy competition, but more important than that, at least to us, is making sure that these businesses succeed. So if it means, for example, we can't fund a whole project because we can only fund up to 75,000, let's just say, we're going to bring in what we call participatory partner, right? Who lender, for example, a participatory lender. We might say, hey, this person wants to sell these types of products. They want to open up their business, but they're looking for, let's just say, $100,000. We can only give up to 75. Could you come in with us? They have all these pieces in place. If you're good with it, here are their numbers, and can we work together to make sure that their business can open? I mean, perhaps, again, depends on what type of business it is. Maybe they're not going to need us, and that's okay. In fact, we hope that, that they're not always going to be coming back to us and needing us, that their businesses are going to be able to take off without us. That's our hope. So there's so many resources nowadays compared to what there used to be out there. And many of our offices are much more willing to, like I said, we take everyone seriously. One of the things that some of the elders would say back then, my father's generation would say, you know what, we wanted to open up our own financials. We need our own chamber because, traditional banks didn't take us seriously. They wouldn't give us the money we needed to start up businesses. And again, many of us are here now, and we help our fellow, chambers and economic development offices better understand the Hmong community too, as well as the rest of the Asian community, the best that we could.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm really thankful that you actually create a business to help like a lot of the Hmong people and very underserved communities. Like I feel like I would need to come to you to talk about for my business because I am still like kind of learning too, and yeah, so it's very nice that you provide that kind of opportunity for people to like, learn more about how to manage a business and to grow, and to also offer like support, financial support. So yeah, are there any more questions that anyone would like to ask for the guest speakers or want to comment anything?
I'll just take this, if you don't mind. I just want to put in a somewhat of a shameless plug too. I think that there's all of these not always positive thoughts about, uh, Hmong, in the state of Wisconsin or just anywhere, right? But I'm very proud of the work that we've been able to do here over the years, starting from my predecessors. I know Dr. Chia was certainly played a huge role, earlier on in the chamber as well, and the creation, making it what it is today. And, I'm very proud of how far we've come. I'm not ashamed to share it all, or that, our chamber is doing quite well. We serve the community the best that we could, and we work very closely with also government entities and distributors of funds. While we don't have grants in our own hands, but we do what we can for the small businesses by putting, really having our ears out there, listening for whatever funds are available. We have very knowledgeable business development coordinators, and I'm proud to say many folks come to us in our site for resources from the mainstream economic development offices, and traditional banks. So please do look to us as a resource and share, spread the word.
I have a question. So for you three speakers, I know that like everyone is like interested. Well, not everyone, but like everyone has their own small business or podcast. But I guess the number one thing I find challenging for most business is how do you guys like gain audience and grow that network? I know there's like social media and there's like other voices out there, but sometimes I see some business or like some other structures, a podcast is like not that strong, and I want to know an effective way of how to grow that bigger audience and that bigger network to like actually get your ideas and thoughts out there.
I'll answer that a little bit. So for my business, it's all e-commerce, so everything's online. So I have my Facebook page, and I like send a lot of posts. I'll be like, hey, like would you guys be interested if I show more of my products, or like what kind of products would you like me to sell? I also like share on my personal account too, like words of mouth, just to like gain the networks. Sometimes where I wear like my cosmetics to work, and someone compliments me, I'll be like, yeah, I sell these, you can I give them my business card, and I'm like, yeah, this is my website, you can check it out. So it's really all just kind of spreading your word out and making connections to back to your business, so then people are informed and know a lot more about it. um, so yeah, that's mainly what I do. It's just talk about it more and promote it on Facebook. I did start doing on TikTok too, and I did gain a lot of like support and viewers from it. But it really takes a lot of dedication. Like you'll have to post every like 3 times a day or 3 times a week for it. Same thing for Instagram and Facebook as well. So it's consistency, like someone said too. So yeah.
Adding on to what Hope said, yeah, definitely posting consistently, like all the time. Uh, but Patrick, I came from a slightly approach from what Hope might think, or what you all might think. I actually is serving the customer that has been your customer already. So I was not looking for more and more. I noticed your questions were gaining for more and more new customer, cold customer. It was more of my warm customer already, and reaching back out to them, and even during this pandemic, since you're just sitting there and literally just writing them a letter, or just reaching out like, hey bro, it's been a while, how you been? And it goes with my ex-employee, I mean, or to people that have supported me. So I was not really even looking for it because I didn't do any advertising, and so it applies with me trying to engage with new customers. It was just reaching back to my old customer, like, hey, thank you so much for supporting, having a pretty while, whole family's doing well. As you noted, I didn't try to sell them anything. I was just really hoping they are doing well during this pandemic, because that's the first people I think of that has supported me. Because without them, Patrick, there's no you. Okay, so so I went back, and one thing I am gonna try a new strategy out is for those who I know their birthday and who has supported me, I'm gonna send them a actual letter, because thank God of Facebook, they have a reminder. So that's a new strategy I would do that I'm gonna try. Because how would you feel if a brand you bought from is like, hey, happy birthday, 39th, whatever? It's like, you're not expecting this. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh yeah, that's right. I bought, I don't know, a tie from him or a shoe, whatever it could be. And so that's a new tactic that I'm going to be doing this coming month. I just thought of it this year. But I've always, the year before, always reaching back out for my old customer. Hey, everything's doing well. I know it's COVID. Let's get on a Zoom. We're just, hey, just checking in on you. That's it. Simple as that.
So I'll say straight up, I'm not an expert at building my social media following. I think I only got like 500 likes, which I guess is decent for what I do. So that's why I'm looking into hiring brand ambassadors, or I think now there's a new job. They're called influencers, right? So that job didn't exist 10 years ago. So you can actually hire somebody that does have 20,000 followers and say, hey, can I pay you $50? You post this one post up for me and link it to me. So I'm looking into growing that way, right? Because if you don't know how to do it, you're not the professional in that field, but somebody else is. You got to think like that business mindset. Like, if they get me like 100 followers and they got 20,000 and they pay them $50 for this post or something like that, it's totally worth my money, because I think I did like a giveaway where I gave away like $100 in a week. I probably only got like 20 followers off of that. So I paid like $5 per follower. So you got to look at your returns and just see where it goes. So that's one way to, again, that whole, you got to look at it as a business. If you can't do it, then maybe somebody else will know how to do it, and help them make a few bucks, and you make a few bucks too.
All righty. We're nearing the end of our time with this panelist. Thanks for Hope moderating. Thanks for Macy and Shiso and Junior for joining us panelists. This was like really authentic and genuine conversations. Like, I really appreciated your personal insights, your personal stories, and continue to hustle, right? So it was really motivating, and hopefully those who watch the recording are also feeling that way. In 2 weeks, we will be hosting another speaker series, and it'll focus about the struggles in the Lao community. So please join us Tuesday, March 30, 12 to 1:30. And again, we'll send out the flyer and the information to register for the link when that time comes. But thank you so much for the insight and the education. Okay,
Thanks
we
for
can close out. Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. That's the end of
Thanks
our
everyone for
panels.
coming.
Thank you, speakers. Thank you, Hope. Thank you,
you.
everybody who's here. We'll make this link available, and hopefully we'll become influencers for people to be motivated to be entrepreneurs. So
You're already an influencer.
I might not get that job, but I sure am a good cheerleader. So thank you all so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.